Hi there, I'm Sonnett. This is Live and Flip with Sonnett, and this week's build focus is about the lighting and wiring for the first floor. There was probably a better way to do this. Starting in the middle might not make sense to a lot of people, but it's the way my brain works. I knew that wire for the first floor lighting needed to come up in the dining room, and so that was where I started, drilling down from that switch, which I just happened to miss the duct and was so very happy about. It gave me a focus, a target of where I was going with the wire. I went down into the basement and followed the wiring that was already there. I had to staple along and drill through some of the floor joists, but it really wasn't that bad on the right side of the basement. Once I got it through to the left side, it was pretty simple to pull it up with the electrical fishing tape that I got. It just made it really easy to pull it up through that hole. The foyer light, however, was a different story. It's essentially the same setup, except this is an exterior wall, and I could not figure out where the floor plate would be in this area. I couldn't figure out where the drill bit would be coming through. So I got down on the ground and was like trying to figure it out. I ended up prying up the boards for this old cold air return. The bottom plate is on the other side of that cold air return. So I gave up and I'll come back another day. Before any of that though, the wire has to come up in the hallway. And I left plenty to pull through, but figuring out this area was going to be complicated, and so again, I just put it off for another day. The power that was there came down and powered the garage lights as well as the carport lights. And so I was trying to figure out what was going on and decided to just make it work and not necessarily match what had been there before. So I knew I needed to do a lot of drywall in this hall, so I had no problem cutting through the lath in order to make pulling the wires easier. That fishing tape again just made it super easy to pull the wires up. And then I had to come back and figure it out. And I needed to kind of trace where things went in the garage, and I did, but again, I just needed to know which wire to power. So once I got that sorted and knew which wire needed to come off with power, I was able to cap the old knob and tube and terminate everything in a junction box. There was also a gas pipe from when the house lighting ran off of gas. So that pipe was going to get in the way of drywall, and I ended up having to cut it back more. Since all the junction boxes need to have access, I needed to cut around, and then I realized that I had already pulled the wires into the junction box, but I hadn't put the drywall up yet, and these are old work junction boxes, so I had to take all the wires apart and put the junction box in after I hung the drywall. Then I have a little light junction box for the hallway light I'm going to put in there. And there's a line coming in with power and a line going out with power to continue to the other lights. When I was drilling up the top plate in the dining room for the light down there, I was trying not to drill through into the stairs, and I absolutely did. So I turned my attention to the foyer light switch, pulling the wire up there, and ordered a little tool in order to be able to drill up through the top plate in the dining room. They have these little balls that go on the long drill bits, and they give you a flexion point to push against, that the top of the drill bit will go straight up instead of at an angle like it did going through the stairs. I was trying to drill down and I couldn't find where I was going, couldn't find what I needed, so I ended up just drilling up and then pushing the fishing tape up, and that actually worked. I was able to get some string, pull the fishing tape back down, and then pull the fishing tape down from the top so that I could pull the wire up from the bottom. And the part that I knew was coming, that I had been dreading for a while, was running the last bit of wire through the left side of the basement. There is just like 4 or 5 feet of dirt as part of the foundation of the house, and there are leaves and spiders, and I just didn't want to crawl through that. But I did it, and I got the wire through just fine. I was able to drill the last holes and pull the electrical wire through the last bit of wall, so that once it's connected to the breaker box, the foyer, the porch, and the dining room, and the hall, and the garage, and the carport will all have light after I cut it months and months ago when I was renovating the bathroom. So I pulled down the foyer light and ordered to run the wire, and just fixing the drywall after running the wire. And of course there weren't junction boxes before, so I had to install junction boxes. With the lath and plaster, it took me a little bit in order to find a junction box that would work for this application, and these are like heavy duty ceiling fan junction boxes. They have a bracket that mounts them between the joists, and it makes it to where I don't have to have a flush surface present when I install the junction box, because there's no drywall there, and there's layers of different things that it has to go through. Especially in the dining room, there was no way to get a regular junction box to work with the depth that it needed to pass through. The dining room ceiling is actually a project that I'm working on right now and will have done soon. So this next bit, I was installing the porch light, and I set up another camera outside and do not have that footage, so you only get to see the inside right now. Actually running the wires and connecting them to the light is pretty simple, and I'll show you that when we do the foyer and dining room light. I'm just terminating all of the knob and tube. They aren't powering anything. They don't have power anymore, but it is proper to terminate them in a junction box, so they're all going in the junction box. There's a power line that comes in, and then there's a line that goes to power the foyer light, and there's a line that goes to power the porch light, and a switch for both of those. So pigtails and those Wagyu wire nuts are super helpful for all of this jumble of wires in here. The switches actually fit with a little bit of play. They could go side to side, and so when I went to put the plate on, it didn't fit exactly where the switches were, so I had to like undo it and wiggle them around a little bit in order to get them to fit into the plate. And of course I have drywall repair to do behind there, as there's a big gap around that switch box. And this is where we started, but this is where we'll finish. Coming all the way back to the dining room light switch, and I have the knob and tube terminating in this box, and then the one switch to power the dining room light. I need to get a special plate that has a blank side and a switch side, so they didn't have any in stock when I was buying the supplies, so I'll have to come back and put that in. But that's it. Thanks so much for watching. Do a build focus every Wednesday and a Zen build on Sundays. If you want to check out the Zen build videos, it's a time lapse, no talking, of everything that I'm up to in a week. And I do a build focus looking at just one project on Wednesdays with some voiceover. So depending on your watching style, I hope you enjoy. Thanks so much. See you next week.